Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. In a very surprise twist, Treyarch has actually responded to a lot of the issues that people have been commenting on with regards to the treatment of Black Ops 6 as it has its live service updates and patches rolled out through Season 1 and approaching Season 2. So today, we're going to cover that response, but in order to know what they're talking about in the response and characterize that response in context, we need to talk a little bit about some of the accusations and problems that people have been leveling at Treyarch with regards to Black Ops 6 over the last couple of weeks, since I basically made my last news video. So I've got a bunch of different stories and issues that we're going to go through today, and then we're also going to talk about their response, which is here, and there's stuff here as well. So let's get into it. First of all, Treyarch released the red light, green light patch for Black Ops 6 about a week ago now, and in that patch, one of the things that they said is that they fixed a bug where players would encounter a scenario where a Vermin could attack twice in a single attack. And this doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But it's been in the game since launch, and we're now months after launch and it's still there. And so the community was like, okay, at last, we're finally getting this fixed. This is good news. But then Harambe Vengeance found that actually the problem was still there and people were still getting double hit by Vermin and insta-killed, right? Charlie Intel reported on it and said that players have noticed it isn't fixed, despite the fact that Treyarch said it was, right? And so they said, thank you for your reports. The fix was originally scheduled for Jan 3rd, but it didn't go live as planned. Even though they did mention it in the patch notes, we now have it scheduled to go live with our Season 2 update. And this created some frustration, I think, in the community, not because the Vermin issue specifically is the biggest thing wrong with Black Ops 6 right now, but more so because there's a frustrating feeling, I think, for Black Ops 6 Zombies players, which is that core problems with the game, like this, which Treyarch have expressed need to be fixed in broader code updates instead of just on like a server-side hotfix, right? They take an extremely long time to come through the pipeline. And so the fact that we've basically had Season 1 Reloaded, right? And that was, when did that come out? That was December 6th or something. And then there was the red light, green light update, which was what, like January, I don't know, 3rd. So that's about a month between those two things. And then Season 1 ends like January 28th or something. So there's basically another month until then. So we're getting one code patch between Season 1 Reloaded and the launch of Season 2. And I get it, there's a holiday, right? I understand these things, but other studios, like Fortnite, for example, they manage to fix their bugs on a shorter time frame than that, even though they also celebrate Christmas, right? So I feel like part of the community's frustration has been that is a very slow cadence for updates when the game is in its opening couple of months of life. And yes, I want the devs to have a holiday, but I also want the executives to give the devs enough time to polish the game up so that it doesn't launch with those sorts of issues, or to be able to build tools so that they can update it on a faster cadence, just like other studios do, just like Epic does with Fortnite, etc., so that the live service is a bit more alive. Do you know what I mean? So that was something that caused a little bit of frustration. Next, there's also been these comments that have been flying around about how Call of Duty is losing so many players, right? You'll have seen a bunch of different creators talking about this. Let's just pull out one particular Charlie Intel tweet. They said that Call of Duty on Steam, like the Call of Duty app basically on Steam, has lost all the players it gained with Black Ops 6's launch. So with the launch of the game, it gained 150-ish K players, and then in December, it lost all of them, right? And you'll see other creators like Blame Truth, for example, he's tweeting those player numbers every single day, being like, well, they lost another 10% in 7 days. Oh, they lost another 20%. Oh, they lost another 30%. It just keeps climbing. And I think that this is an interesting debate, right? Because on the one hand, I would absolutely expect player numbers to go down after launch because that happens to every freaking game on the planet, right? That is just a normal thing. And we don't have a perfect picture of any given Call of Duty titles, like 1 day, 7 day, 28 day, 3 month retention curves, right? I would love to have that data, but as far as I'm understanding it, as far as I know, we don't have that data, right? And so it means that there's all these other mysterious factors that could be influencing these numbers, like, okay, people are on Game Pass, right? So maybe it's just that the Steam players joined in October, November because they're more fickle, whereas maybe the Game Pass players are more sticky and they're actually continuing to play the game now and it's all fine, right? I don't know. I just don't know. But it's an interesting stat regardless. I mean, just because it's an isolated data point doesn't mean that you should ignore the data, right? It's interesting all the same. And the fact that it's losing all its players that it's gained on Steam seems pretty problematic, right? That seems to be emblematic of there being an issue, right? Which is what everyone's been saying. So it's just data to then back up the sentiment. Another issue that came out in that January 3rd update for the Squid Game update and the other microtransaction stuff that they added is that they added this frontman operator, right? And it's the reward for the Squid Game premium event pass, mind you, not a free thing. As far as I'm understanding, this one is specifically payment gated, but it has the same voice lines as the replacer operator. So let's just listen into this clip that Charlie Intel's provided here.
I can't feel my face.
Okay, so he's saying I can't feel my face.
I can't feel my face.
That's the replacer saying I can't feel my face. Now, my understanding of this is that the I can't feel my face line is the replacer referencing The Weeknd because of his I can't feel my face when I'm with you, right? So the replacer should be referencing The Weeknd in that way, but the frontman operator shouldn't be. And I think, if I recall correctly again from what I've seen people talking about this, I think there's like 2 or 3 lines tops that are copied between the two, but that's it. Like, that's the extent of it. And this one, again, I want to sort of make sure that we're being balanced here and being fair, because I'm not only negative, despite the fact that if you're a MrRoflWaffles hater, you might think so. On the one hand, I think that this could be as simple as somebody accidentally copied an extra couple of cells of an Excel document over to another voice actor, and that voice actor just recorded those lines and they were like, oh, we just made a very small mistake and we'll fix it at some point. Like, I could imagine that being the case, right? And in that scenario, it's like, it's not deep, right? Does it really matter? It's not that deep. It's like, it would be nice for it to be fixed, but it's not like sell the game, never touch it ever again kind of status. But in the context of everything else that's going on, that's where it starts to become more of a problem. And honestly, I think that the sad thing for me about this is not like, wow, Treyarch is ripping us off with more premium event stuff, etc. Like, I feel like that stuff sucks, but I actually, in this weird instance, feel worse for the devs. I think that this is an Activision thing that the devs are kind of having to suffer through. Like, Hunter says, this is so embarrassing. How did Netflix allow this collab to go ahead? Roblox and Fortnite's Squid Games blow this out of the water. I think the problem is that Activision is making a decision at the top of the food chain to be like, okay, we are going to sell premium event space in Black Ops 6 as a service, right, to these other brands. So they'd sell that service to Squid Game, they'd sell that service to Godzilla, they'd sell that service to Kong, etc. And then they'd basically be like, okay, we've sold all of this space now because we want to juice our pockets with as much money as possible. But then in actual fact, to deliver that, we need to basically kill our developers, right? That is my impression. My impression is that, like, the Squid Game event, if it didn't exist, right, if their corporate business dealings were not happening there, that's instead time that no doubt the voice actors here, the devs that are working on the audio, like everyone involved in that sphere could have had more holiday time. They could have been more rested coming back from the break. That might have meant that when they did get back from the break, they're able to do better work because, like, the skin isn't falling off their face because they're so burned out. Simultaneously, it might mean that they've got more time to be able to actually work on Citadel Day more and on Terminus and Liberty Falls, the issues that are still present there. They might be able to do a better job making more interesting lore, more interesting voice lines or whatever for the next Zombies map. Like, it would free up bandwidth to focus on the core experience that is still really broken. I think that's where the irony comes in with this, because I don't think people are necessarily saying that skins should never exist in the game, right? I think there's a bit of a conflation where, like, I tweeted, for example, being like read the room, right? And Swag said the same thing. He was like, read the room, guys. Like, you are absolutely just, you're taking the piss here because you are pumping out all this microtransaction-y stuff, but the background fundamental game itself is in a really wonky place. And people came back to me and they were like, well, Milo, they're different teams. So why are you criticizing the team that's doing one thing when another team is messing up? And the problem is that I'm actually not criticizing either of those teams because those are both devs, right? I'm criticizing the person that is telling those people what to do. That's Activision's executive branch. That is who I'm criticizing here. And if Activision as an exec level front, like umbrella over the top of everything here, was making better dev first and player first decisions about what was going on, instead of just selling more rights away, selling more licensed space, like selling their sort of shop front to all these different other brands and whatever, instead of actually focusing on the fact that their game is broken, then those teams wouldn't be doing anything wrong. Right? There wouldn't be any problem there because Activision would have made a better decision at the very sort of top of that food chain. So it's a point that I think can get lost really easily, but please try and wrap your head around what I've just said. If you think that I'm being hypocritical saying, oh, they're selling skins when they need to be fixed in the game. I get that they're separate teams, okay? But just listen back to what I just said and it will start to make more sense. They're separate teams, but the Reaper comes for both of them, and that Reaper's name is Activision. So, next tab. Some people didn't care, right, about the voice line overlap. And so, like I said, I wanted to sort of make sure I had some balance here. I saw Fumo's tweet, and Fumo was like, it's like 3 lines. I'm not that pressed. Like, I don't think it's a really big deal. And like, I would have so much more room to be kind of forgiving about these sorts of things if it wasn't happening left, right, and center, day in, day out, every single time there's a patch, right? That's why I think people are sort of getting so twisted over this stuff. Now, there are other reasons to be critical of the patch, which were much more existential. So, for example, Zone tweeted saying, they broke everything. Incantations stop lighting up, explosions stop exploding, ammo mods aren't visual, Casimir grenades are invisible, sword ult attacks aren't visible, power-ups aren't lit up, there's probably more. They've broken everything. There's people that are having issues with the GS45s, there's people that are having issues with the parasites, the lava also is like not lighting up at all for some people. Like they basically caused a lot of problems with Citadel Day more once that patch came out. And MrRoflWaffles over here, in a freak moment of actually defending Treyarch, I responded to Zone, and I said, okay, first of all, do you have a video of what you mean? Because I wanted to make sure I was understanding the situation. And it's things like this, right? You've got the lightning sword there, it's beaming, but there's no lightning coming out. So you're like, I can't aim it, it's awkward, I don't know what's going on. And when all of these things add up in combination with a bunch of other effects that all break, it starts to get really difficult to play the game. So in a freak moment of MrRoflWaffles defending it, I said, to be fair, this has happened to me since the game came out. And I've always just fixed it by save quitting. And so I was curious if it had sort of started happening more aggressively since this new patch. And again, this isn't me saying it's been happening since launch, and that's a good thing, right? But just specifically trying to identify, was it this patch that broke it all, or what? And then you've got MZ weighing in saying that, yeah, this patch did really increase the problems here. But again, he respects the fact that they're trying to get updates out timely to meet community demands, right? So there's a little bit of balance there, which is nice. But no matter how you slice it, the patch did introduce a bunch of issues with the game's visuals. And that is a problem that it has consistently had here and there since launch. And so you're starting to get a feel and a picture of things here, right? You're starting to get an idea that like speedrunners are unhappy because of the patch, as I explained in my last news video, and I'm doing a speedrunner roundtable today, so that'll be out soon as an announced podcast, so you can get the download on why speedrunners aren't happy about the game. You've got high rounders who are still suffering from things like double vermin attacks. You've got regular casual players who are still having problems with the Citadel Easter egg. I get DMs every single day on Instagram, I get tweets, etc., from people being like, I've tried to do Citadel 4 times and it's broken every single time. Why? Right? Like, that is still happening. And I know a lot of you guys individually might have anecdotally had a perfectly good time with the Citadel Easter egg, but bear in mind, I am listening to like 100,000 people or more at the same time all talking about this, right? And just because you haven't had an issue doesn't mean that I'm not seeing 10,000 other people over there who are having issues, right? Like, for example, Ether Shroud. They made a bunch of changes to Ether Shroud in the previous patch. They broke the game. Now, Ether Shroud quite frequently will crash your game if you're on PC. I believe it even happens on console too, but I'm not sure. But I've had people that have been getting to boss fight, Ether Shrouding. They've been finding that if it doesn't crash the game, weirdly, Ether Shroud's been nerfed. It takes longer to get out of the sort of animation. It's just worse, generally, or your game crashes and you're done, right? So like, these things are happening, and so I'm trying to amplify that as much as I can, but overall, that's what's causing people to be like, wow, I feel some negative sentiment building inside me here for Black Ops 6 and for the way the live service is being treated, even though I recognize there are still some other people that are having a perfectly good time, right? You gotta be comprehensive, you gotta be holistic with your approach to these things. Just because you're not having issues, somebody else might be, and they are, because I'm hearing what they're saying. And so while that's going on and the sentiment is not so great, right, you also have entire other cohorts of the player base also having loads of systemic issues. So like Aydan, for example, this is a guy that knows Call of Duty inside out. The game is really bad right now, please do something, right? Let's go for another one. Scump. Scump literally said, like, I'm just gonna play the clip actually, it's crazy.
Dude, he's just in such a bad spot right now, dude.
Would Scump be saying this if he was having a perfectly good time? No, right? Like, Scump is good. He's made it. He's done everything he needs to do. He's retired. He's not gonna sit here and just trash the game for no reason, right? He's speaking from experience here.
I don't think Call of Duty has ever been in a worse spot than it.
And that is a crazy statement, right? Do you agree with it? You may or may not, depending on which part of the game you play the most. If you're specifically a ranked play lover, then maybe you agree with it like full force. If you're someone that like only plays zombies, then you might not agree. You might think, I mean, we've had it worse. Maybe Black Ops 4 launch was worse or something like that. But let's see what else he has to say.
Right now, it's kind of depressing, to be honest.
I agree.
I was already concerned, like, them releasing rank so early, and the CDL started up, and then we had like a month break from the CDL. So I was already a little bit concerned about all of that, because I was like, okay, I don't know. They're kind of busting all their load all over the place a little bit early.
And they were on like an accelerated timeline with that stuff, right? Which shouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but it's a bad thing if they're on an accelerated timeline because Activision is making the devs crunch to do stuff on an accelerated timeline so they can fit in more Squid Games, right? And that means that we get a worse quality ranked, a worse quality anti-cheat or whatever, and we get worse quality LTMs as well. Everything has its sort of polish eroded by the fact that Activision is trying to squeeze so much in there just to milk the player base with limited time event passes and stuff like that, which they've never done before, just to try and make more money from us.
Rank play, they usually make us wait, and they blue ball us a little bit. They make us wait for, they make us chase that carrot for like 2 months into the game's release. They dropped it so early, and then they dropped it, and it was so bad
because it was underbaked.
The hackers, right? Yeah, itself isn't bad,
and that's another thing as well. He's making a really important point here.
Play itself is fine.
The game itself, at a fundamental level, like the design of Black Ops 6 Zombies, I would say overall is pretty good. Right? I think it's pretty damn good. Like, it's a fun game. It's just when the fun game is and this goes for all the modes, when it's shrouded in so many other problems, it's hard to get to the fun bit, right? And again, it depends which part of the game you're in, experiencing those issues and the lens through which you're sort of seeing those issues. But the core product has got good bones. It's just the rest of it is a little bit distasteful right now.
I think the system is fine. I think it could be better, but I think it's fine.
So he's not talking about the whole game, obviously. He's talking about like ranked and stuff, I believe.
I don't think there's any problems with it. Problem is the cheaters.
Right.
They just fucked up. And again, we're not completely straying away from COD either. Like, let's not overreact. I'm not gonna be not playing COD at all. We're just gonna be switching things up a little bit more.
He's going to be switching things up a little bit. This is the king of competitive Call of Duty, right? And I don't want to be sort of like alarmist here. I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, he's quitting. He's not quitting, right? He literally just said he's not quitting. But the game is really giving people reasons to not play COD right now. And this is evidence of that. What Swag has said is evidence of that. What Nadeshot has said is evidence of that. Nadeshot's streams over the last couple of weeks, what have they been? Marvel Rivals, baby. Like, what have I been doing over the last few weeks? Not making zombies videos, that's for sure, because it's frustrating to wallow around in the problems that the game has and just feel like that sort of push-pull isn't there where the devs are actually getting on top of those things, right? Like, it just stings. Like Charlie Until here said, as a reminder, don't expect any anti-cheat updates in today's Call of Duty patch. This was on January 3rd, right? Activision's claimed they have updates for Season 2 and Season 3, which is at least 25 days away. Season 3 is like 11 weeks away, something like that. So today's update focus is adding more MTX with the event pass. Oh God, when framed this way, this is crazy. This is actually crazy. It really, it just shows you the problem, right? The core features of the game, i.e. competitive integrity for a ranked mode, are gonna take 3 months, right? Should have been done pre-launch. That should have been a pre-launch priority, and instead we're getting more microtransactions at the event pass. Okay, so what's Treyarch doing about this, right? What's their comment? What's their response? Well, for the first time in a really long time, Treyarch said, hey everyone, we've got a handful of zombies updates live today. TLDR, we are reverting changes from January 3rd that nerfed fun. Yes! Yes! More of this, please! More of that forever. Literally, Treyarch, print this out and frame it. Put it, like, I've been in the studio one singular time, okay? I know you've got all this amazing art on the walls. Could you just, like, find a place where you could spray paint on there? Never nerf fun. Could we try that? Maybe that would be a useful reminder. Because this, I should not be seeing this being like, oh my God, fun is coming back. That is a criminal sentence. The fact that that's something I'm praising them for, like, this is the bare minimum. This is the video game that we bought, and yet I'm like, yes! So, honestly, it's embarrassing for me. It's embarrassing that we've been treated like this way, and now we're just celebrating the bar while it's on the ground, being like, the bar isn't in Hades, it's just on the ground anymore, let's go! But it is good, okay? Credit where it's due, it's good. They listened, and not only have they listened, but they are acting. And that is the even more important thing. But the listening, honestly, is like, that's all I've been calling for, really. It's just like communication. And we're getting it. So they're also giving Shadow Rift 4 new buffs, which is so good because one of my big critiques about that last patch is that they randomly, out of nowhere, just nerfed Shadow Rift. I was going to say Shadow Blast. They just nerfed Shadow Rift, and everyone was just like, why? Why are we doing this? This was totally uncalled for. Like, you could just not, right? They were just nerfing fun. So great to see that that's getting buffed. They're also fixing some annoying leftover bugs. Cool. And they're updating Deadlight, Greenlight in weeks 2 and 3. And the details are here. So let's go into the details now. And because I'm only ever negative, right? Because I'm just a negative person, I said, wow, you're reverting changes that nerfed fun. I'm speechless. They're listening. Let's go. So I just had to make sure that I was negative there. You know, I just wanted to be clear. I never say anything positive, and there's actually some evidence of it. Yeah. So what's actually in the patch? January 9th. Okay. In multiplayer, they've increased XP awarded for match bonuses, and there's some stability stuff. Whatever. And Warzone is just like left to rot, I guess. But for zombies, they've got this message, and it's communication. It's communication. Okay. So, hey everyone, let's talk about those changes from January 3rd. The team is always focused on making zombies fun and rewarding. It's why we make video games, but we don't always nail it the first time. Take that accountability. Let's go. Some fixes for bugs or exploits can become lower priority as more important issues come up, and some need to be held for an update further down the line, which we have talked about a little bit earlier in this video. I'll come back to this. Last Friday's changes to Big Game for Shadow Rift, that's the issue that I was just talking about a second ago where they just nerfed fun for no reason. The Shock Charge speedrun step for Terminus, the fact that they're addressing this, let's go. And directed mode spawn delays after 5 looped rounds are prime examples of these. These are great to sort of have them saying out loud, right? Because there is a world, and I'm being positive here, okay? There's a world where Treyarch starts communicating and they just say, last Friday's changes missed the mark. In the next patch, we will be doing blah to bring fun back or something. And that's it. They could be super vague, cover their asses, not take any accountability, right? The fact that they are explicitly saying this change, and this change are examples of the things that you guys are not liking means that we as a community feel heard for expressing those things, right? So this is really good. It seems like a small thing, but the people, I suspect it's multiple people writing and reviewing this copy could have easily not done that. So I want to call that out and say that's good. Okay, that's absolutely a good thing. We know it's not fun to see a fix multiple weeks later for something that wasn't bothering you in the first place. That's a weird wording. That wasn't bothering you in the first place? Oh, as in nerfing fun. Okay, I thought they were talking about the other changes like fixing Vermin. Maybe we'll talk about that later. So yeah, we know it's not fun to see a fix for things multiple weeks after that wasn't even bothering you. So we're reverting the directed mode changes. We're giving Shadow Rift 4 new buffs, and we are scheduling a fix to allow speedrunners to safely use the shock charge tactic in Terminus again. Oh yes. The first 2 are live now. And the speedrun fix will need some extra testing before it goes live. Interesting. I really hope this is true. This is just me being a bit paranoid, I guess, because of, again, the way Activision approaches these things. If they're saying they just want to do some extra testing before it goes live, instead of saying this can't go live yet because we need to do a code update and that has to be at the start of season 2 and that's why it can't go live, I would like them to just be honest about that. But we have no way of knowing, so it's not worth really sort of dwelling on. Thanks to everyone for the reports of visual effects not showing properly in Citadel and crashes that can happen when you're using a sword while Ether Shroud is active. Oh my god, they really are listening. This is good. The crashes that can happen while a sword is using Ether Shroud with the Void Sheath Augment. I think there's some broader issues there as well, but this is at least one of them. The team produced fixes for these bugs shortly after they popped up and they're live today. That's what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Oh god. Okay, before we go any further, right? Because there's other stuff to talk about here, but before we go any further, Treyarch, when at Black Ops 4 launch, okay, if we go back 5 years, the thing you originally blacklisted me for being negative about the problems in Black Ops 4, okay? Let's go back 5 years. In those videos, this is like old trauma in me that's coming out. In those videos, I asked for better communication in the blog posts because quite consistently, we would see a blog post come out and for zombies, it would just say stability fixes and improvements and it wouldn't feel like we were being listened to. And I multiple times said, what I want to see is I want Treyarch to talk to us like we are adults that are not just children that they're talking down to, but actually like we are their peers in this exchange of them making a game and us playing the game and giving them money. Okay? And this sort of stuff boy, oh boy, it's been vacant from so much of the communications between then and now for reasons that, to me, are mysterious, right? I don't know why. And it's meant that I have been a broken record for years being like, the communication's not good enough. The communication's not good enough. The communication could be better. The communication could be so much better. We could be so much happier if they communicated differently. Like, I've been harping on about this, and I've been a broken record, and for some people, that's really annoying, right? But I have continued to try and make it as clear as I possibly could that this stuff really means something. It really, really makes a difference. And this today is nearly perfect. Like, this is all I ask for. This is it. Just transparency, recognition of your mistakes, swift fixes to things that can be swiftly fixed, such as some of these issues that are live right now with fixes, or acknowledgement or timelines for when some other fixes are going to come down the pipeline if those are indeed scheduled. It's so good. I cannot stress enough, this is so good. The broader game has a bunch of issues right now, but in the zombies department, communication has always been such a weakness, and this feels like a strong-ass response. So props, okay? Props. Let's talk about some of the stuff in the patch. For Citadel, they've addressed an issue where using the Void Sheath augment for Aether Shroud with one of the elemental swords would cause the match to crash. Great. They've addressed an issue where many visual effects would stop playing. Great, so this is just stuff from above. In Directed, they've addressed an issue where guidance would be incorrect if a player disconnected with a stamp. They've addressed an issue where guidance would be incorrect each time a new stamp spawned, and addressed an issue where picking up Soleil after a stamp was spawned could prevent quest progression. Cool, okay, a couple of bugs that I didn't actually know were there for Directed mode. Maybe that's part of the reason why some people have been DMing me saying, well, I can't progress the Easter egg. It keeps breaking. So this is good to see. The Easter egg definitely needs to be maintained at all costs. Then in Directed mode, they've removed the extended time between rounds and the delay cap between zombies spawning after 5 loop rounds at the round cap. This basically was just a nerf to camo grinding and headshot farming and stuff like that. And they've removed it now because it was just annoying. So that's great. And also, I think it's actually maybe more important for me to characterize this as it wasn't just added to the game and then it was annoying for camo grinders. This is also annoying if you're just playing Directed mode. Like, what this change did, just to sort of laser in on the DNA of a bad decision here, so that we can avoid these in the future, the DNA of a bad decision is taking a game feature, Directed mode, that is designed for a certain cohort of players, and then it's noticing the other people are using that game feature for something else, and saying, oh, we don't want them doing the something else, so let's introduce a change that makes both groups' experience worse. That DNA of a bad change right there. So it's really good that they are removing that now, because it means that, okay, they recognize, yeah, it's Directed mode, people are using it to farm camos, all right, that's a problem. But if you're making those people unhappy and you're potentially affecting the experiences of people that are just running Directed generally, then that's frustrating. And even if it's just a second camp, for the record, even if they're the only people affected, if you're just completely removing fun, right, or you're just sort of stopping people playing and stopping them in a way where they then just don't even engage with the game anymore, that's still a bad change, right? You gotta give them fun stuff to do, fun reason to do these things. But yeah, anyway, I could talk about that in another video sometime. Ammo mods for Shadow Rift. The normal enemy activation rate has been increased from 15% to 20%. Awesome. Special enemy activation rates have been increased from 5 to 7%. That's very minimal. Elite enemy activation rates with big game have increased from 5 to 7%. Okay, cool. And the cooldown timer has been decreased by 25%. Awesome. So it says, the big game augment for Shadow Rift was never intended to one-shot elites, but we know it worked like that for months. Yeah, and it was fun. And we heard you about the latest change taking too much away from it overall. So we've added these buffs to make sure it activates more frequently, including a 25% cooldown reduction to keep it powerful and fun to use. Again, I think the biggest step change in player enjoyment and fun and respect for the devs and for Activision and whatever here is not going to come from the fact that they've just made these Shadow Rift changes. It's coming from the fact that they've done so in a way that actually speaks to our pain point and then communicates to us, not like we're children, as they've done in a couple of the other patches of Black Ops 6 earlier this year, or last year, but instead just talks to us like an adult. You know what I mean? This is really good. More of this, please, guys. Then for the LTM, They've added Liberty Falls to map selection. They've increased the round cap to 20 before exfil. And again, we've got more commentary from the team. Good. With the launch of Deadlight Greenlight, we wanted to ease players into the LTM with a single map and a 10 round cap before exfil to make sure the majority of players had a chance to be successful without feeling they needed gobblegums to survive. What? A bite-sized experience that's not too punishing. Looks like it was too easy and over too soon for a lot of you. Really? I don't know. Okay. I love the fact that we're getting this communication. I love the fact that you're saying we've done this because. Like, I love that. I want to be very, very clear. That is very positive. However, I find it hard to believe that the 10 round cap being something where you wanted the majority of players to have a chance to be successful without gobblegums, like, that feels like spin to me. Because you're making out like it's like, oh, we were actually trying to prevent you from using our microtransactions, right? We were trying to prevent you from having to spend more money by, like, it feels like spin. Do you know what I mean? And I also think that, like, looks like it was too easy and over too soon for a lot of you. I think this is sort of jumping or dancing around the problem a little bit, which is that Treyarch consistently in zombies over the last several years has made the majority of its design changes in favor of a player base who do not describe themselves as zombies fans. They've made the majority of those changes to appease Warzone people, to appease the broadest possible player base, rather than just sort of targeting the niche zombies people. And what that means is that they're trying to make it easier and easier and easier and all that stuff. And so when you're like, oh, looks like it was too easy, hee hee, whoops, that won't happen again. It is a little bit like, well, that's what happens every time you do anything ever, guys, because the zombies player base don't feel like the priority for a lot of these changes a lot of the time. So you see why I'm skeptical of this, but still, I kind of don't care right now because I'm just happy that this statement is here in the first place. So like, it's still getting a resounding thumbs up from me. So cool, whatever. Starting today, we've added Liberty to the map selection and extended the cap. After that, we'll plan week 3's round cap extension based on how crazy the community wants the challenge to get. Why not just do that now? I don't get it. I don't understand. This is not, it feels to me like this is them trying to make content out of like next to nothing because they probably sold Netflix on a 3-week event. They sold 3 weeks of event space, but the devs are so unbelievably crunched that they don't actually have time to make meaningful changes to the mode for week 2 and week 3 to actually make it more fun in a new way. And so the devs are like, the only thing that we can physically do here without actually dying at our desks is just changing the round cap. Like, call me skeptical, but like, that's what it feels like. So yeah, overall, I'm still just avoiding touching this event completely. I think that it's just not in good taste right now with everything else that's going on. So I'm going to continue to not touch it. I explained this in my previous video as well. I want to sort of recognize the fact that the COD devs are crunched beyond belief. And I want to basically sort of learn from the error that Activision is making there and say, okay, well, I'm not going to repeat those issues with my own team. So I'm making sure that people like Joey Conway have a good amount of holiday right now so they don't have to stress about all this stuff. And so we're just not going to cover Deadlight Greenlight, and we'll come back once my team are properly rested and they feel like humans that are not being worked to the bone, and then we'll crush it season 2 with them and beyond. And then, wow, look at this. Various stability fixes, the classic, but with an extra statement, right? That's what I was asking for 5 years ago. It brings a tear to my eye. Okay. Sometimes bugs appear fixed in testing, but turn out to still be an issue in the live game after the patch goes out. This sucks for everyone involved, and it can lead to inaccurate patch notes, which we never want. The Vermin double attack bug is one of these, and like the Terminus speedrun fix, the proper solution for it unfortunately can't be implemented as quickly as some of the other items listed above. Look for both of those fixes when Season 2 launches on Jan 28th. Honestly, it's a W. This is a big, fat W patch. Does it mean that the issues with the game are gone? No. All right, I talked about like a bunch of other bits and pieces that are still problems, right? They are still problems. So there is still work to be done. But this is the beginning of moving towards Season 2 and beyond, where the community isn't just furious with Treyarch, all right? Now, there's one last thing I want to say here. Activision and Treyarch, this is a message for you guys. Right now, there are crazy fires happening in Los Angeles. And those fires are completely burning down people's homes, and many of the people that are affected by either the homes burning down or just the evacuation orders that are in place are Call of Duty developers. So there's sort of two things I want to say here. Number one is it is absolutely paramount that as the employers of those employees, you, please, I beg of you, are doing everything in your power to make sure that those devs affected in that state, because Call of Duty is so heavily based in California and in Los Angeles. In California, right? And there are a bunch of COD devs that are suffering right now. They're just suffering through this. And it's so important that they are properly supported by their employer in this time with whatever extra room needs to be given to them. And so I just want to sort of say that as a general sentiment thing. I really hope that something like that happens. I hope that there's an internal plan in place to support those people appropriately, etc. Give them space that they need to be able to find a new home. Like, it's a big deal. But the second thing also is that if, and this is a small chance, but if Black Ops 6 DLC 2 for zombies, so the sequel to Citadel Day More, if that is scheduled for the launch of Season 2, and the devs are working on it right now, right? And your options are, well, we could either release it in a worse state because our devs have been unhoused, right? Or we could release it half a season later, or even just do it mid-season. Do it like 2 weeks in, right? Just take an extra 2 weeks, okay? If you need to do that, just so that the devs can appropriately find new housing and it can release in a more polished state, that is what I would prefer, okay? I would prefer for you to delay that release so that the employees can deal with real life, right? Because it's like, if you guys look at the videos of the fires, they are insane. And so much of the games industry is based in LA. And I know that this is going to be having massive, massive implications for the development pipeline of the live service of this game. I just know it. And I want to make sure that the devs are all right, basically. So I just wanted to tag this on the end here. But as always, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on all of these things. I'm so glad that Treyarch is listening. It feels like a lot of the speaking up that I've been doing in the last couple of weeks is actually being heard, which is so rare to be able to say that, but that feels so good that, like, you guys are giving me so much insight into your experiences with the games. I'm able to kind of be like a speaker, right? Like a loudspeaker to amplify those out and make sure that the devs actually are tuning into some of that stuff, and then they're actually acting based on that. And that's a W, Treyarch. So more of this, guys. Let's definitely hope to see more of it in the future, and I'll have another news update for you as soon as there's more news to cover in the coming days and weeks. Bye for now.